And welcome back, everybody, to the Hot 16's podcast series. I'm out here, your host, PvP. We're back for another great installment. This episode is really, really special to me. This is something I've been trying to put together for a little while. We had it scheduled, but of course, we have everyday lives and we have stuff going on. But today, we finally get to get one of my favorite teachers out from my youth. And today's guest is Dr. Vazquez. Dr. Vazquez is currently, she just got her doctorates from, is it USC?
No, USC was my undergrad.
Undergrad. Where are you getting your doctorate right now?
UMass Global.
UMass Global. So she got her doctorates, and she's getting it. Dr. Vazquez here. So guys, I just want to really quick say, remember the people that helped you shape you to be who you are. And like my father always told me, remember where you came from, because those are the real people in your life that help shape you to who you are. So today we have not only one of my favorite teachers growing up from Point Arena High School, but one of the people who actually had my back, actually gave me words of advice. And now I've taken what I've learned from her and everybody else from that area and made me today. So without further ado, guys, let's introduce Dr. Vazquez to the Hot 16's podcast series. And we're right here.
Thank you so much, AJ, for your kind words.
Yes, of course.
It's really an honor for me to be here today. And I told you earlier, in my mind's eye, you're always going to be that young man.
Oh,
In
yeah.
my classroom, and you're always going to be one of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so proud of what
Thank
you've
you.
accomplished.
Thank you.
If anybody knew circumstances of your youth
Upbringing, yeah.
and how you've had to overcome so much more than
It's just
the average person,
Mhm.
and now you're here and you're killing it.
Yeah.
I am so.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know how proud you are. Also, too, we want to also voice too. Miss Vazquez here is a sponsor too for our Hot 16's festivals. She helped make the first one go pretty smoothly. So thank you for that. We appreciate your help and your encouragement. And it's really great too for me because I'm glad that someone from my upbringing sees how well I've managed to take what I was given and what I've turned it into. I don't have T-Sand hitting me up. I'm not in contact with Mr. Blair, and Miss Grossman, shout out Mr. Blair and Miss Grossman, but in T-Sand, she kept it 10 toes down, straight up. She wasn't a sucker at the high school, and we would always love going to your classroom.
Oh, it
was
was
a lot of emotions. I mean, it was me, Nico, Kyle, Luis, Adriana, Celeste, Maria. It was just, we had a Juan, Patty. We had it was just a certain core of people that you would always see in your room. And you were always helping everybody, whether it be with ELS or, me and Nico were working on a U.S. history packet from South Coast or something. You always had, here's this. Okay, everyone's good. All right. And then you would kind of even get us to a point where you would just check in, and we always had an agenda. We were over in the corner, and then you had the girls with you at the table. I always remembered that it was just, there was such good team dynamic. We were almost a little mini family. And that's how I looked at it.
I took such great responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for your success. Your success became my.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a student that was failing, I took it personal.
Mm-hmm.
Because, being a woman of color and being a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
we're underrepresented.
Definitely.
In the teaching profession as a woman and as a color. And so I know what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to have no one believe in you and to have no one have visions for you and push
Exactly.
you and want you to aspire to greater. So everybody that walked in through my classroom, I wanted to push them to the best version of themselves that they could.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But in order to do that,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I got it. It's just you're gonna come through a little quiet, and you're important.
So I'm going to,
Okay.
Greg, how are we? Better? Okay,
Is this
perfect.
better?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. We're just we're plugging and playing here. So this is our first video set too, because we have all of our audio versions. So
Yeah.
now we're finally getting that. But continue.
Okay, so I was saying,
Yeah.
as a woman of color who was a teacher
Mhm.
in a rural area,
Yes.
I was the only Latina on staff.
Yes, you were.
I was the only bilingual teacher
Yep.
at the school.
Yep.
And so I felt a very I felt like a connection to the students that were ostracized by
Yes.
other students or unfortunately by other staff.
Yes.
And so I was sent students that other faculty didn't want to deal with
Yep.
or people had just given up on.
That
And
was very common. Oh,
you
get out of
remember
my.
that,
Oh,
right?
I remember. No names, but a particular friend of mine, when we would be in Miss Platt's class, she wouldn't put up with us. If say we're in the back or whatever, and I get it. She's giving a lesson, pay attention. But just work with the student. Maybe they have an attention deficit disorder. Maybe it is hard for them to absorb what you are saying, and they are distracted talking to their friend Johnny or whatever,
Right.
And I always remembered the teachers at our school would kick out the kids that were either had a reputation or they just didn't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right when they would walk in, get out.
Right.
And what that does to a student,
You change the trajectory of a lifetime.
exactly, makes them, I don't care. They don't care about me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my first goal when I got there was just to learn from the students.
Yes.
I really hated it as a student. Like some new teacher comes in and they start like telling you what to do and this is how we're going to do it. I wanted to learn from the students. I wanted to learn the culture. I wanted to learn the community. And then after that, I wanted it to be a safe space because students cannot learn if they're not in a safe space.
No.
If they're not being listened to and if they're not emotionally available.
Well, and you also, too, what you did really well was you knew what we were like dealing with and what we were up against and what we had already started to, have challenges with. Not only was it a safe place, but you made us feel comfortable talking to you about certain things. I remember there were instances, for example, where I was telling you things I would have never told my parents. And that's pretty powerful as a teacher to move a student that way. And, that's why I give you so much praise because you also taught me how to express myself. And you also taught me how to tell people how I'm feeling. And it's okay to tell people because that person could help you. So another thank you for that.
You're welcome. Some of the students that would come into my classroom would be reeking of weed.
Oh.
Because, Mendocino. everyone's
Guilty.
And
Sorry.
I was like, okay, well, what's more important?
Getting mad at them?
Getting mad at them, telling them not to do X, Y, or Z, or just making sure that they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have kids in my classroom that were reeking, but they felt safe being there and they weren't out doing God knows what anywhere else.
Yeah.
And eventually they would show up not smelling like weed and doing their work and being ready to do whatever.
Yeah. And you saw that side of them. So you knew like, okay, I know I can get this out of this student. And even like they felt comfortable. I mean, God, how many times I walked into your class, all of us. What are you guys doing? Oh, it's coming back from the cafeteria. God. Oh, man, we're so thankful to have you.
School, it's a great place for a lot of students if they're academically gifted or if they're high performing, but school can be a very scary place for so many of us that don't fit or click any of the boxes.
Well, it's also too like school. I mean, it's like high school. I mean, if you don't fit in, then there's all the other challenges that come with making friends or fitting in or being popular, like because our sports were kind of weird. Like we weren't a big sports school, but we were very competitive within our own area,
Mm-hmm.
There were some judgmental people. I remember because like I talked to our last guest about it, how I did golf. And you remember I was a very avid golfer in high school. And I had made that decision to not play baseball where then those baseball kids were like, ugh. It's like, who cares, dude? Like, I'm doing what I want. My body, like, why do I have to do what everybody else is doing to make you happy? Nah, I'm good.
Well, when you have a school that is so small,
127 or 140 or 127.
127, I think it was
my senior year was 127, and
to
then
put that in perspective, my graduating class was 2,000 people.
Yeah,
wow.
Just a few hours away. Like,
oh, yeah, my graduating class was over 2,000. I went to Crenshaw High School.
Yeah,
and so I dealt with a lot of the same things that some of you students were dealing with. So
one thing
I had
though,
one student tell me I had street cred, and that's why he would come to my classroom.
Oh, you were triple verified. No, like, because see, the thing was, is when
You
we
heard
got,
it here first.
when we got introduced to Dr. Vazquez when we were 14, I remember how our school years would be Mr. Galletti, get everybody in the auditorium, pack the chairs up with everybody. We're all rowdy, first day of school, energy's great. And we would do a segment where Mr. Galletti would introduce all the new teachers. And I remember when you were introduced to all of us, and it was like, oh, whoa, like, we have a Latina teacher coming from Los Angeles. How in the hell did you find us? Like, we were sitting up there like, what? Oh, okay, for sure. But then it just turned into this great, relationship. And further, too, with our relationship in high school, we would do coffee cart together, which honestly, that I give a lot of praise to you and Vicky. Now, those kitchen skills got me ready for just basic things. Because I remember when I got my first apartment in Santa Cruz when I was 19, I was like, okay, I know how to pour a boiling hot pot of water without hurting myself. I know how to use a knife without cutting my finger off. Like, just those small things you guys taught us. I was like, wow, like, they really were preparing us for success. And one thing, too, now that we can kind of talk about, so how did you find the application to apply at Point Arena High School? Like, I know you were fairly fair out of college, right? Like, and you were out, job seeking. So how did that process start, if you want to fill everybody in?
Yeah, so I believe in happenstance.
Oh, okay.
You know what that is?
I think I've heard of it, but just elaborate on it.
Happenstance, just you are at the right place at the right time, and you meet the right person, and like all of the stars align and things happen for you. So I had just finished my graduate degree with my teaching credential, and my sister at the same time was finishing up her bachelor's at Stanford University.
Okay, so she was up north.
She was up north.
Okay.
And her friend was graduating alongside her, Lindsay Smith.
Okay.
She is the daughter of Gordon Smith.
All right.
He lives in Annapolis. You
Yep.
might know him.
I know Gordon.
He used to be a board member.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, actually, my dad's worked on his house before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've been to his house.
It's like up in the mountains.
Yeah, it's out there. It's off on, like, you go up Annapolis and then you go out on a dirt road.
Yes.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's
very rural.
So I was sitting next to him during part of the graduation ceremonies, and small talk. What are you doing? Oh, I just got my graduate degree. I have a special ed credential. Da da da. He says, well, we're looking for a special education. Why don't you
apply?
I was like, yeah, sure. I don't have any children. I wasn't dating Ruben at the time.
I remember you were like, there was no Ruben. I remember that.
Yeah, there was
Ruben's awesome.
Nothing tying me down. So I was like, you know what? I might
young.
never get this chance again. I'm young. I don't have any children. I'm going to do it. And so I applied, and they called me right away. And I went out and I interviewed, and they offered me the job like that same day.
Yeah, and I remember too, you had asked, what was the question you had asked? The main source of income for families?
Yeah. So when it was my turn to ask them questions, I wanted to learn about the community. I said, what is it? Because it's such a small town. Like,
how do people make money?
How do people, how do you live here? So I said, what's the main source of income for parents around here? And they said, agricultural. And then Coach Dan, do you remember him?
Yeah.
I believe he's the principal now of South Coast. He says, like, almost like begrudgingly, he says, well, the pot industry is really...
Yeah, Coach Dan, he would never hold anything back. He was I'm going to give it to you straight. Yeah. Him and Jim DeWilder, too.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
Oh, they're not afraid to open their mouth.
No filters.
No filter, especially Mr. Shea. Shout out Jim, though. We played a lot of booster tournaments together.
Oh, yeah.
No more Sea Ranch Golf Course.
It's gone?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It couldn't pay off the original loan for the expansion from the 90s, and it's done. No more Sea Ranch Golf Course, yeah.
I often dream about Point Arena. Like,
really?
Dream about being back on campus and driving up that windy road to get to Point Arena.
And you too, and you had your house too at the top of the hill there in Point Arena for a little bit. I remember too. You had your home.
We were renting.
Okay, yeah. I thought you guys had bought that one.
No, there's no way you can buy a house up there with a teacher's salary.
Yeah, maybe if the economy was
any sort of sound.
Right? It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. It's sad because, you're missing out on really great teachers.
Yeah,
Just
and
can't afford to live
just to
there.
kind of tie in too with some music questions I have for you. So I know that you're a big Tupac Shakur
am.
fan, and you grew up in the '90s and the 2000s, and so you were in the heat of that kind of Biggie Tupac feud, right?
I was in high school, and as I shared before, I went to Crenshaw, which was predominantly African American.
Yeah.
So you had the students who were siding with Tupac and those who were siding with the East
Biggie.
Coast.
Yeah.
And it was like a legit feud on campus.
So would you have some people like, oh, you like Biggie? I'm gonna beat you up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's still on every episode. I'm a metalhead. I don't listen to him. But like even I know Pac beef is alive and well to today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's become a different thing. But like I tell people Biggie or Tupac. Who do you like? Like
It's like Coke or
a
Pepsi.
divisive divide.
Coke or Pepsi?
Yeah, exactly.
Coca-Cola.
It's the same thing. Like,
Pepsi goes flat.
You're not wrong anymore. Ask like,
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And so, to wrap back on the question is you're a Tupac fan, and I know that. So, was
Yes.
it ever like you just kind of kept to yourself type thing? Like,
No. I
Did
think
you
the
voice it?
majority of my friends were Tupac fans,
Mhm.
and we were pretty vocal. And he spoke to many of the struggles that we were going through at
well,
the time.
and also too. I mean, with Pac being California and having that LA understanding, you guys could relate more to that music than a guy who's being arrogant and Biggie, because at that point it doesn't even seem like you're listening to the music. You're just trying to
Right.
pick a side.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So
Was there were you in high school when Tupac was murdered, or were you in college?
this was my first year of college,
Okay.
and I remember exactly where I was when it was announced that he had
Where were you?
passed. I was on my way up to my dorm room, and
Uh-huh.
my roommate came out of the room screaming, "Fuck's dead." And we were all at that point still hoping that he will put through,
Mm-hmm.
but
There was nothing. He was gone. So you were a freshman at USC, and also I remember you taught me this. She went to USC when Carson Palmer was there.
yeah, and Reggie Bush.
Yeah. That's pretty dope. That's why I was like, yeah, because we're big sports fans, so you got to shout out the USC alumni. Hey, I always remember though, growing up though, like watching Carson Palmer on the Bengals. I mean, he was a decent quarterback, just didn't really get a good offensive line and a good set of receivers. But yeah, you had Carson Palmer when you went to USC, and you went there, so that was '96. I know it was your freshman year of college.
95 was my
95.
like 95, 96. So.
I wasn't even born yet. God damn.
Oh God, thank you for the time check.
I was around. So
There you go.
I was
So
8
to
years
wrap
old.
though around this question, guys, if you want to pop me right here on this. So what we got going for you here is pretty much we've kind of got to know Dr. Vazquez a little bit and our upbringing together and our connection with one another and my upbringing. But today what we're going to do here is she's brought some photos from the Tupac Shakur exhibit.
Yes.
Okay, so what she's going to do here, I'll direct you over to your camera, is she's going to go through some photos she took. And these were pieces that
In
were...
the video.
Huh? And a video too, sorry. She's going to be going over some pieces and kind of explaining them in her own perspective. She went to the Tupac Shakur exhibit here in Los Angeles, and that was from the Shakur family estate.
Yes.
Like gifted and obviously controlled, but they were able to do that, which I think honestly there's a lot more artists that need that who have passed on. So I think this is probably going to be a really good thing for hip hop and people who have passed on,
Yes.
So without further ado, guys, we're going to let Dr. Vazquez, she has a little set of slides here for us, and take it away.
Thank you, AJ. So the Tupac estate put together, curated an experience, and this was at LA Live, and it was scheduled to run for just a couple of weeks, but it was pretty popular with everyone you would see school buses pull up with children. As a matter of fact, the estate made it free for school-aged children. So LA Unified, very involved in having that piece. And I went multiple times, so I would see the buses of children pull up, and I would ask them questions about what they thought. And several of them had not even been born yet when Pac was singing. So that was kind of like, wow, kind of old. But I'm thankful to have been alive when
he was alive,
and seeing the change in him as an artist. And honestly, going through that experience just made me sad all over again for having lost a voice and all that he could have been, because he had so much more to give and so many plans. So
I know we're supposed to be focusing on the art here, but back to the earlier conversation that you talk about, like sadness and loss with Pac, and how you lost something, right? That's something that you started dealing with. That's something that you are so invested in his growth, and that's something that you kind of taking that growth.
I would say absolutely, whether it's consciously or not. But when I first got to Point Arena, one of the things we were told is that you're not to allow students to listen to music in class because it's disruptive. And we had a school security.
R.I.P. to Gunning.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. And he took his job very seriously.
He did. He wanted us to be safe, but it was, mix of emotions.
Right. So if the rule was no music, then he walks in, my kids are all on, some kind of music earpiece or whatever, and I would get in trouble, but, whatever. I knew the power of music.
Definitely.
And I knew that kids could concentrate more and that it spoke to them, it calmed them. Music triggers a different part of the brain.
Exactly.
It works fundamentally.
Yes, a
It's
certain
all
frequency.
ADHD now,
Yes,
but it
yes.
helps having the multi.
I remember
Absolutely.
there
And
was...
I don't know if you remember this too, AJ, but I would always give kids a stick of gum.
You would.
Because
She would.
chewing also, connects the synapses.
I use it
little-
for testing.
Yeah, she
I
had
use it
her
for
little
studying
cabinet.
and I use it for testing.
I remember you had... Oh my God.
And I would get in trouble for that too.
Yeah.
Because then they would say, well, there's going to be gum under the table or gum on the floor. There was never any gum under my table.
No, because we knew that you were giving us a little reward and kind of like, hey guys, being that cool teacher, making us feel comfortable with you, And that's what I feel like Point Arena too. They wanted to take us being ourselves away. Like they wanted to make us people, like I get it, it's a system, but they wanted to teach almost like certain objective up there of being a human being that isn't now kind of a societal kind of person.
I think there's so many positive things to Point Arena and so many areas that we could further grow in. But coming in as a new teacher and from the big city with this different perspective, I had a different lens. And so what I did was when I came in, the first thing was to make everyone feel safe in my classroom.
You did an amazing job.
And then to make it a place where they could actually learn and study. And little by little, you start building in those organic boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So it did get to a point where I had really clear expectations of my kiddos. Like, you are going to get an A in that class.
Yeah.
And I am going to help you to do that.
Yeah, we're going to do this together,
But it was part of the relationship that I had built with the kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot ask someone to do something
if you don't have the relationship and the connection with the student.
Right.
100%.
Right.
100%. So let's get back into this, though, to tie around. Great question, though, Greg.
Sorry, I totally
No, that's
derailed.
fine. That actually, that was a really, really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Cyanide. Shout out to Cyanide behind there. Oh, his kid. We got a little, he's my tech guy, but he's kind of like, he's like a Joe Rogan Jamie. He'll chime in a little bit. But let's get back here. So this I'm looking at right now. Words of Wisdom. Is this a poem?
So the exhibit had many different halls.
Okay.
And so this particular one speaks to Tupac's words of wisdom. And I believe that one is as you went into the poetry room. Prolific writer, everything was handwritten.
Yes.
This was
really before a digital era. I mean, he
Yes.
was, 96. So, I mean, you're just starting to slowly get typing and.
Right.
Mhm.
But in one of the areas of the exhibit, it speaks to how he wanted to write, because there's something as an artist, when you put pen to paper
Mhm.
as opposed to typing, the brain also functions differently.
Yep.
When it's something, and being an artist yourself, you probably.
Yeah, I actually started, so with my music, I have music on the side. This is my main focus, but I don't like typing my music on my phone, because for me, you're multitasking, because when you get into a studio, it's all crammed down on a little phone, and then you're like, you might scroll too fast or something. For me, I can put my whole entire verse on a piece of paper, and just like music class, I have my little thing like for your sheet music, but I just put it right next to me. I prop it up, eye level, and I'm just going the whole time. But it gives me more free embodiment and power within my music to actually express what I want to say inside the studio.
Right.
So,
right. So
writing is more powerful.
Right.
Yes.
So all of his music, he wrote by hand.
Yes.
All of his poems written by hand. And the estate did such an amazing job of curating.
Yeah.
Those are just some of his poems.
Some
of his poems, yeah.
Wow, because I remember when I was listening to Jada Smith, because she had a little entanglement with him. She said that he used to write her poems.
Yes.
And she still has some of them.
Yes.
And I know that that was something when he wasn't writing music, or he was actively writing and practicing his craft.
Yes.
Because not only is music poetry is music.
It's an expression.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. It's feel.
Exactly. It's how you feel. And I mean, so right here, what do we have? These are just some of the poems. So how many?
Yes.
Let's see here. That's a 5 by like 10. That's probably 50 on that wall. That's probably at least 75 to 100 right there. And are they all very structured, like long poems? Are they quick 3-sentence poems?
They're all pretty long.
Like he was telling an emotion, or maybe he was feeling, or maybe a past trauma, or
right. And so he comes from a very storied family too. His mother was a Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
His mother was in that movement. His family
Mm-hmm.
was in that movement. And as a young child, the FBI was monitoring everything that they did. So there is a part in the exhibit that speaks to that, where it says that he helped the parents smear peanut butter on the windows so that the FBI couldn't gaze in with whatever technology they were using at the time. But
wow,
he speaks from a place of authenticity and pain and trauma.
That's where I see a lot of artistry, because I deal with a lot of hip hop artists. I feel like that is gone. It's just, I'm going to get on stage. Yeah, I'm getting money. I'm doing this, or you're really good with your words. But it's like how we had Avery.
Yeah.
When
I mean, it's
Hobson told him okay, that's predictable. Like Tupac's music, you're like, okay, what's he going to say?
It was, for me, in that moment, it was a social movement. Music was part of a social movement. And
hip hop was really progressing in the 90s.
It's I remember, but I remember hearing the Mama song where he sings about his mama and all the shit that she went to prop him up, and that spoke to me as a kid from Sacramento. Still reached me.
Definitely
an impact on my life and generational boundary.
Well, it's just shout out to even just like Mac Dre. It's Tupac and Mac Dre are similar to me, because they could talk to the doctor at the doctor's office, or talk to the pimp on the street, or the nerd doing homework.
Yeah.
They could talk to anybody.
Yeah. And I think for me, Tupac is kind of like what,
Yeah, exactly. And I can see that, because honestly, I was just getting into, when I was getting into hip hop, I had found out who Mac Dre was, and I only had, I was alive, but I only knew about Mac Dre for 1 week, before he passed away. And then my mom had seen me with my friends, because you had the Thizzle dance, you had this hyphy movement. We were getting into that as 8-9-year-old kids, wow, hyphy, right? We loved it. But then A week later in the Press Democrat, I remember the day I found out Mac Dre died. I was 9 years old, or 8 years old. Sorry, I was 8 years old, November 1st, Press Democrat. And my mom gave me the paper. She's like, isn't this the guy that you guys are starting to listen to right now from Vallejo? I'm like, yeah, what happened? And she's like, I think he got murdered in Kansas City. And I remember reading the Press Democrat article when I was 8 years old. And that was kind of like the first time I've like really took in a loss of someone. I was like, wow, like I just found out about this guy. What happened? But my mind was so numb to the situation. You know, I didn't understand. I just like, it was music to me, you know?
Yeah.
So I could understand how when you were 18, it kind of like, you know.
During that time when I was 18, I was obviously in high school, senior.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment coming out. And Pete Wilson was the governor. And there was...
Of California?
Prop 187 was coming out, and that was very anti-immigrant. Like, don't allow them in schools, don't...
Oh, whoa.
Like,
see, I'm not educated like that, so...
So one of the songs that Tupac put out was called To Die and Live in L.A.
Okay, so that has kind of substance to that bill.
He speaks to that in that music, and that's the power of music. Like, education, rallying, supporting, that was part of music.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right when you say that hip-hop now is completely different, and it's materialistic.
Yeah, it's like, look what I have. And that's why I'm really proud that I've gotten myself into the underground hip-hop scene. Like, you know, I bring Cyanide out, and he's a metalhead, right? He was like, dude, I had a great time. Who would have thought you dragged me out to an underground hip-hop show, your own festival, and I had this much fun? I was like, well, that's the love of hip-hop right there. Like, you had hip-hop inspire you to, like, wow, like, this is awesome, you know?
Right. So Tupac and the hip-hop movement of back then inspired me to want to be an agent of change.
Definitely. So right here, we're into our next photo here. What is Cyanide? You want to read that off?
It says, in my home, a book, any book, is a sacred item. In my home, a book is more important than a light bulb. A book is more important than the sofa. The book must be preserved. That is the home that Tupac lived in.
I'm getting goosebumps right now.
So that is a quote by his mom,
Ah.
Beanie. And
I didn't know how to say her name.
that should be everyone's priority, educating themselves.
Yeah.
And he would read newspapers like Times, New York Times, educating himself so that his hip hop was relevant to the struggles of the time.
And that's the thing too. I give kudos to my pops. He still reads 3 papers a day. Like Pops, let's get you no, I want to go get that newspaper, because the things they put in the newspapers are not putting on the news. I mean, if you've read a recent newspaper and you read like, why is this not being talked about? Instead of, you know, oh, this person hit this person.
Ratings.
Obviously, the media plays a big role in it. So with this right here, these books, is that Fahrenheit 451 on to the right?
Judging by
Just the color scheme.
I would say it might be a modern iteration, but it be.
So these books, were they books he read as a child?
Yes, and they're books.
Van Gogh earlier in our off conversation. There's a Van Gogh book there. I see Black Power. I'm sorry. I'm trying to identify further. There we go. We can actually just zoom in.
Catcher in the Rye. Okay, we had to read that.
So all of those books were formative. And
The Roots.
sadly, some of those books are banned in many places across the country.
I know that there was a push for a while there to, speaking of Fahrenheit, push to have that be a ban, because it is literally that. It talks about how powerful books can be.
And burning all the books.
Yes.
Yeah. That was an interesting one. And you almost say Catcher in the Rye and Fahrenheit 451, when we had to do, what were those things they had us do? It was the whole school. We had these projects. I don't know what the idea with it was, but so 9th through 12th grade, every grade was assigned a portion of the book. So they would break it down into 4 sections. We would get
diorama.
We would have to read it. We all had to write a paper about it, and then we all had to collaboratively come together and make a cinema about that. And then we would put the 4 cinemas together and make a whole rendition of the book, but we don't watch what the other people are doing. So we all sit and we have a video school like movie premiere, and we all get to see, like we all expect, but then,
That's cool.
So that's what we used to do. And I remember, though, with that book, Catcher in the Rye and Fahrenheit 451, those are actually the only two I read and actually saw interest in, because it just, to me, it wasn't your common.
Have you seen the?
No, should I watch it?
It's pretty good.
Is it a good rendition, though?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not letter for letter, but taking something as powerful as that and converting it to a written challenges.
Yeah.
I think they did a pretty good job.
So, this right here, though, I like, though, because thank you for zooming in, because I'm a recognition person, so I could right off rip, I was like, I think I know that book.
So
I think I know that book.
There's a Malcolm X book in there.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of
we actually had Afro perform, and oh, wow, right there. Hell yeah.
Malcolm X, you got the Charles Hamilton Black Power, you got The Roots by Alex Haley. My name is Ishmael.
Wow. That is another Van Gogh book right there. So.
He was a very learned man.
I mean, to have read Moby Dick, I would say so.
Right.
That's a read. I've read that, and it's
yes.
So with this, though, if I may ask, you being a teacher, I know you love to read, and you're very, you got your doctorate. Did you spend maybe extra time here? Did this motivate you at all, or did it kind of speak to you in a different way from any part of the exhibit? Because I feel like this right here, just me personally, after he read that, I felt empowered.
I did spend extra time just looking at that, and also part of the exhibit was wearing some earphones.
Oh.
So you're listening to the tour as well, and you can hear the mother talking about the importance of books and the importance of education and how people have died to preserve books. And so music became a way to preserve the message, the book that has been burned. And so the two are connected in that manner. They're both powerful, and they're both silenced when whatever oppressive body doesn't like the message.
And we're seeing a lot of that these days.
I mean, it's not just these days, dude.
Oh, yes.
Got the pagan.
Everything.
They whitewashed the world, and they burned it and lost a lot of culture.
Well, that's the reason
much
too.
Knowledge was lost for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the new Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
I have not yet.
I personally, I was in the middle of it, but I know that from what I've seen, there's such a strong message in that. I actually stopped watching it halfway through because I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm just clear-headed enough to watch this. I feel like that's a type of movie where you gotta like sit down. Hey, shut the hell up. I'm gonna watch this. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting for a time. I don't know if that's weird, if you felt that before, but I don't feel like my mind is actually appropriately ready to try and understand that.
African tribe, the tribe in Africa of where the women lead.
Oh, Oprah, right? Wasn't Oprah in that?
Davis.
Oh, Viola Davis. She's amazing.
The Woman King. Yeah,
that
that's
was
what it was called.
Movie
I haven't seen it yet. I saw the trailer, and that shit gave me goosebumps.
It is a really great movie.
Yeah, because women ruling, right? I mean, so you don't see it.
I mean, it's not just that the women were ruling, dude. That they were like a small, think 300 Spartans.
No, I know that. I've seen the trailer, but I'm just saying, just in general, though, to let women have that much power and be that strong,
So the Wakanda Forever is from a woman leader perspective.
Yes.
And the Dora Milaje, which reminded me of the Woman King because they're elite female warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a segment in that movie where, the young Namor is coming out of the water and he's saying the Catholicism, the conquistadors, the colonizers coming in and burning everything. So lost so much knowledge. So many books were burned. These were not people who were.
Well, I think it was. Let's see here, because my dad taught me this. Reason why we didn't have cement was it the fall of the Roman or the Greek Empire when the Romans burnt all the books? They burnt the recipe for cement.
So do you know why the Roman just figured this out this year?
Oh, really?
There's a huge scientific
Look
at the old Colosseum stuff. They seem
because isn't it because of the ash from
the limestone? As the limestone gets wet, it expands. Common cement, fine and coarse aggregate, water, and that's what we make
concrete.
That's how we have potholes.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's why their stuff is good for so long. That's knowledge we lost.
Sure.
Yeah,
but we just because
modern technology is
we were able to recently just this year.
Yeah,
it's crazy that was something that they knew way back then, but my way is right and your way is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We lost.
Yeah, and that's so unfortunate.
Imagine how much
we don't even know lost technology in a sense, like, do you know that we don't even know about? Because there's all these things coming out too with like 12,000 years ago there was humans and there was a huge reset. But right here we have you, it seems like, is that a headset on your head?
Yes, that's the headset.
Okay, so was it Ruben
did
snap
you have to wear theirs or did you get your own?
They provide them for you right at the start.
Well, you get some beats or what?
They
Beats
provide
by Tupac?
Oh!
Yes. They provide the headset to you at the beginning, and they tell you how to work it.
Mm-hmm.
And so every exhibit has a place that you scan, and then the story starts. So this particular day, I was stuck on writing my dissertation. I'd hit a wall, as writers and songwriters do. I'm going to go see Tupac. I'm going to go be inspired. So this is me being at the exhibit for the second time, trying to be inspired. And,
I mean, yeah.
And it was taken by my friend, Dr. Walker, and she's part of this Resilient Walker movement.
And if you want to, so
you want to show that?
Yeah, if you want to show that really quick.
Make sure the mic's in front of you. Otherwise I won't hear you. There you go.
We got you.
So this sweater here says, this is the R for Resilient, and my good childhood friend, Dr. Walker, we went to middle school together. Traumatic experiences, and she took her experience and became a motivational speaker, and so she speaks to trauma and how to overcome it and how you can find strength in trauma.
And guidance through your traumas.
We need more people like that.
And so music is part of that. And
so is that part of her like teaching or her therapy sessions, or how she communicates with people?
She started off as a special ed teacher and found that to be a passion and a gift. Mm-hmm. So now she just is the innovative speaker.
Yes. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Because I mean, and you're supporting your friend too. So like, I'm going to check out one of those. That's a nice little pullover hoodie right there.
I like to support my people.
You do an amazing job of that. You are giving back in ways like, I will say, I was like, okay, well, we'll check out and see what Ms. Vasquez, and I showed the movement, and I was like, the fact that you were like, oh, I'll sponsor you. I was like, what? You want to sponsor me? Like, oh my God. Like, because to me that like shows, like we've talked about, like how much and like even like that's you being a real person too.
Well,
that's the street cred.
Yeah. There's your street cred.
I'm very much a believer that we don't live in a vacuum.
No, we don't.
We cannot become better versions of ourselves if we don't lean on somebody else for support.
Yes.
So I had people helping me, and now I'm helping people because I'm hoping those people will help other people.
Yeah.
Like
and what you were able though to allow me to make sure it went well, I was able to give a stage to 15 other up and coming artists to work alongside a major industry hip hop guy. Came right up in here, and he was humble, and he knew like I'm here to encourage and inspire these young upcoming MCs and hip hop artists to be where I am today. So not only did Fro empower that, but by you helping us, you gave those 15 people that opportunity that night. So thank you so much.
And it was a good show.
It was a great show.
It was a great show.
I wanted to make it, but I was so sick.
It's okay. I mean, we had a lot of people here. You're thinking about community too. Like, what one person wants to have fun but ruin it for everybody else. I mean, we have another one coming up, so we got you. You just pull up, Ms. Vasquez. You just gotta pull up. You got tickets on the last one, so we got to honor that. Because I had a few people because it was rainy, and so like we're gonna make it right for everybody.
when I got in touch with you about the festival, and I was like, how can I help? How can I sponsor? And then you said, I'll comp you tickets. I said, no, let me pay for them, because I'm so irritated when someone says, oh, you're my friend, I know you. Why don't you give me a percentage cut on your craft, on your passion, on your income?
Because that shit cost me time. That's why you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe in paying people for
Yeah,
their
which
time
I
and for their
appreciate,
talent.
you know, but that was just me trying to give a thank you. But I understand that you're like, well, you're in this to do something. You're not doing this for free,
Right.
you know, which is awesome though, because you kind of taught me a little bit though on that one. You're like, no, I'm gonna pay you.
Yes.
So
Pay people what they're worth. It's respect.
yeah, and that's like I talked to. We had an artist on the show a few episodes ago, and we had talked about the value of our paintings. She's also an artist. She actually is Naomi. She did this piece right here, very very beautiful piece. It's taken her over 2 years to make this. And I asked her, I was like, well, how do you feel, you know, when you have an art piece and, you know, say you put a price on it and then they just depreciate that value, you know, like, she was like, oh, well, you know, like we do our thing, but it's what the value is to you and how you hold yourself. Because if you show the weakness, then, you know, that's what people are
Right.
going to do. So really quick, though, I'm now looking, this one just caught I had no record all my life. No record, no police record until I made a record.
Police record.
Yeah, no police record until I made a record.
So that spoke to me, because the records talking about equality, about inequality, about so many of society's ills. And
If I'm looking, is he a black guy?
yes,
Was he beat up by cops?
yes,
Damn.
or jaywalking.
Yes.
When was this, like early Tupac days?
For jaywalking.
And did this happen in LA? Yes. You would think, you know.
It was a lot.
So what do we
Around
have?
back
We have here. This is okay. So Tupac, Roses,
Yeah. So
Mr. Machiavelli.
so there is a collection of his poetry, that was put together by the estate
Mhm.
after his death, and it's titled "The Rose on the Concrete."
Yes.
The title of one of his poems. And so this particular painting at the end of the exhibit, when he talks about growing through adversity.
Mm-hmm.
So you're walking through this hall, rose petals kind of just falling off on the sides, and it smells like roses. So all of your senses are activated. Visual, you're off, like everything.
That's the video you.
Yes, that's the video I saw.
So I think, yeah, that's to go with this. So this is a quick little video of this is the end of the exhibit?
Yes.
Okay, so you said those are like rose petals like on a digital.
Yes. And that sound is probably
It's the heating, the air
the
conditioning,
rose,
the
the
HVAC.
rose smell coming.
So right there what you saw, so we'll let's run that just one more time so we can give people a second take on that. Yeah, and mind you again too for the noise guys, shout out to Exhibit for giving us the space. Got a little train coming by. So right there, pretty much, guys, is what we have. Is that's just the end representation of the exhibit. So what they're trying to do, what I'm picking up on is like the rose petals have fallen.
Right, so you go through his life almost, and at the end, the roses reminding you that a rose grew from the concrete. Like, you have all sorts of trauma that you go through,
Yes.
but through adversity, there can be growth and there can be beauty.
And you know what? I solely believe in that because you know what? I was dealt a pretty bad hand a few times. Growing up wasn't the best. I was lucky. I was fortunate. I had both my parents. Not a lot of households did, but I feel that the adversity and overcoming stuff. Wow. Like I'm not even at this Tupac exhibit, but I feel like we just got a full, like, fledged experience. So we have one more. This is a Tupac.
We have two more. But
okay,
yeah.
two more. So these are from a song or some poems by
You
Tupac.
want me to read it?
Yeah, Cyanide, if you want to read that for us.
Because I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish. And because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody's going to clean it.
That was part of an interview he gave, and that was part of we can all be agents of change.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't have to be the person who does this monumental shift in culture.
No.
But everyone has their part, and small things build into big things.
Yes.
And so as long as you help the person next to you, you're already changing somebody's life trajectory.
Yeah, you changed my life trajectory when we met you. Like we knew, like I keep voicing here, when you know someone is there for you, never take that for granted. When you know someone is there for you, never take that for granted, because one day that person might not be there anymore. I just say that out of personal experience, where I didn't know it might have been the last time I talked to a past friend or a past relative. Take things how they come. And if someone is that willing to help you and they see something in you, don't sleep on it. That's something I used to do selfishly all the time. Oh, I don't need you. I don't need this. No. People are here to help. And if you have a community that sees something in you, remember, you have a purpose. All right. What do we have? We got one more here. Cyanide, if you want to read that off.
We are the rose. This is the concrete. And are my damaged petals. Don't ask why. Don't ask me why. Thank God. Ask me how.
Tupac. And that was that too with the roses there at the end. So that was kind of like, was that almost like the final?
That was
like little
was the
hey.
final comment.
So we have another one here. So is this a poem or some bars by Tupac?
This is a poem, and this is at the beginning of the exhibit.
So, Greg, with your best due diligence, Cyanide, with your best due diligence here.
Please wake me when I'm free. I cannot bear captivity. Where my culture, I'm told, holds no significance. I'll wither and die in ignorance, but my inner eye cannot see a race who reigned as kings in another place. The green of trees were rich and full, and every man spoke of beautiful men and women together as equals. War was gone because all was peaceful, but now like a nightmare, I live where I see. I can't read the nightmare. I wake and see that I live like a prisoner of poverty. Please wake me when I am free. I cannot bear captivity, for I would rather be stricken blind than to live without expression of mind.
Wow.
My terrible public reading.
Well, but you got to decipher that though. I mean, you got Ebonics, and you have, you got some art there. I mean, you're respecting
it's his
someone.
Writing,
yeah, that's how he expressed himself. I mean, shit, we got the number 4 in there. He didn't write out 4. That was a time of, that's who he was, and that's honestly too, when I started getting into music, I always felt like it had to be very grammatical, had to be very like structured. But one tip I did get from a friend: it doesn't matter what you write, it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it and how you present it. Because really, I mean, there's a lot of people like Cyanide showed me a band called Baby Metal. And I was like sitting there listening to
like dancing and that like voice in front of like death hardcore thrash metal. It is the most obscure. Doesn't make sense. Do it with such confidence and vibrance that it's actually I would never listen to the music, but I would go see them live because it's a great, amazing show. I'd feel.
Yeah, I don't even know how that'd be on the radio. Fuck.
What you just said about the writing, how it shouldn't be structured and it should just be a reflection
of who you are.
It's kind of the role of the educator too. I think that you will not remember the lessons I gave on academic whatever.
You taught me life.
But you will always remember how you felt in my classroom.
And yeah, that's still to this day. I there's times I will openly express, like, I've been so just, I was like, man, the days of Miss Vasquez's class, like a couple times in recent years, I've always thought like it makes me appreciate things more, and how I almost took your class for granted, where I was like, man, did I do my best there? Like, did I get everything out of there? I'm still feeling this way, but then in the same sense, you have those positive spirits with you to always remind you, hey, they were still there for you. They still helped you. They still gave you that place. So Don't think like that, you know? And I, once again, you know, guys, amazing teacher, an amazing educator. I'm going to be speaking at her career fair for Yosemite Valley Charter School. 2 schools out in Fresno. So I will probably have some kind of link or something like that so you guys can check out my presentation. I want to try and motivate these kids just like you did me. That's my number one goal with that.
That's always been my goal. Just very important for our career for this year is to inform students that there are other options other than a 4-year college.
Yes.
And that it's okay.
Yes.
And sometimes it pays better and you don't end up with the student debt. And
I built all of this from the ground up. It's been 2 years of very hard work. The last year has been very consistent, but I went to college. I tried it. It was not for me.
And that's okay.
And it is okay.
It shouldn't be a stigma to it.
Well, it shouldn't just be go to high school, go to college, get $100,000 in debt, and
there
then
are
have
so thousands of people out there that route, went to college, don't even use the degree.
I have a handful of friends right
it's
now.
sad.
Like find a job. It's
well,
sad.
And there are also like the world can't exist without
right.
Carpentry.
My father,
all those people.
Yeah.
All
Anybody
learned it from somewhere, and
Right.
most of those require college.
No.
Like, yeah, they do require some. have
Just to
become
keep you up
proficient.
to date.
Well,
But
there's value in every education.
Exactly.
yes, there is.
There's education on the streets.
And I also, too, learned, which was a heavy influence. I just want to shout out Levi Spangler's grandmother, Donna Bishop. I remember in high school, too, she was also another, another positive place where she told us, she's like, boys, I'm not going to give you a college degree. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the degree of life. And when she told me that, I took that like the degree of life. Well, what's the degree of life? Being a good person, being there for people, having like self-acknowledgement of your surroundings, being sustainable. Like there's so much more to life than materialistic items. Having all the money in the world. I just saw an ad on ABC, like a news ad saying, oh, if you make over $150,000, you can't buy a house. Well, okay, that might be the case. But even then, they're saying, oh, people are leaving California. That just goes to show you how irresponsible those people are, because I live in California on a $30,000 a year income and I do fine. The education system didn't set us up to checks and balances, pay your taxes.
You know, the state curriculum is written by people who are not educators. And it kind of flows with the wind, whatever political
When they got to make them look up.
Right.
Yeah.
Education.
Right, and I think we would do a lot better as a society if we taught kids financial literacy.
I finally learned that the last year or two, but it's taken me from being 18 and not having financial responsibility to learn that.
Right.
So they kind of just throw us out there like where I probably use about 10% of what I learned at Point Arena.
I can't.
I mean, there's far and few, but I will say that, you know, I don't regret, though, where I grew up, though, because, you know what?
I mean, it's not just Point Arena. That's schools in general. Like, I work in construction, right? That's carpentry. I've never once broke out algebraic equation to build. Like, and I you know, when I was going through those classes, and they're a requirement to graduate. I'm not knocking state education. I was told, you're going to use this every single day of your life. Like, I've used the Python.
I've not used it, but you're right.
You know, but like, I work in that field where I should be using that. Like,
Right.
but
It's not going to happen.
not like, I don't know. And like, you know, again, not to knock educators, my teachers, job with, but like, I feel things that are taught aren't always the most. I feel that there's a way to do better and to teach better, and the fact that we have teachers that realize that and that are advocating for. But also at the same point, if we're being honest, and somebody sat down and taught me taxes in high school, I probably would have.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like,
I think the thing that you did, though, is you made it fun. Like, you weren't like a bland educator. Like, you knew how to relate to the students. You're like, okay, I got a group of these guys in here. Okay, I'm gonna switch my vibe a little bit. Like, okay, for sure. But we'll catch that vibe just a little bit. But with some final thoughts here, Miss Vasquez, Dr. Vasquez. She's a doctor now. Ow, my arm. No, I'm kidding.
Wrong doctor.
Wrong doctor.
Doctor. But not that kind of doctor. Doctor of education.
Yeah, but that's still a very, very. You worked very hard to do that.
If not more important.
Huh?
If not more important.
And I will say that less than 2% of Latinas have reached that.
Shout out Dr. Vasquez.
Can't have needle poke in the arm doctors without education doctors.
There you go. But guys, we're coming up on our hour here. You know, like we've voiced, you know, the shows will get longer. But Dr. Vasquez, thank you for an hour of your time. You got to show us your experience at the Tupac Shakur exhibit, which honestly, I'm sad I missed that. And I really hope that they bring that back out over into Oakland, because if they do, I'm definitely going to try and get out to that. But are there any final thoughts or any thing that you would like to say to my audience?
Well, thank you for having me here, AJ. It's been fun catching up.
Yeah.
Last thoughts, I would say find your passion. Music speaks to everyone, and it transcends generations, cultures. Don't try to conform to what society says you should find happiness within. Help others find happiness. We are on this planet to help each other. So one kindness builds on another kindness.
Definitely.
And that's how we change. That's how we become agents of soul.
Definitely. That was beautiful. I love how you ended that note. No, I mean, it's just very empowering. And guys, we're coming up to our end here. I'm your host, PBP. This has been another amazing show, the Hot 16's podcast. I hope everybody's enjoying it. Just remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Get those bells whistling when notifications pop for new episodes. I'm your host, PBP. We're out here doing our thing. Dr. Vasquez and I, we're out.